war with the most dangerous enemy that has ever faced mankind in his long climb from the swamp to the stars. And it's been said if we lose that war, and in so doing lose this way of freedom of ours, history will record with the greatest astonishment that those who had the most to lose did the least to prevent its happening.
We, the people, tell the government what to do. It doesn't tell us. Our Constitution is a document in which we, the people, tell the government what it is allowed to do. The man is not free unless government is limited. And informed patriotism is what we want. But still watch closely and don't be afraid to see what you see.
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies. Even today, there is little value in ensuring the survival of our nation if our traditions do not survive with it. For as a wise man once said, an error doesn't become a mistake until you refuse to correct it.
When in hell are all you people going to wake up?
Moretti Underground, the Liberty Report.
Well, hey, everybody. Hello, America. Welcome to the Monday, June 16th, 2014 edition of Moretti Underground, the Liberty Report. The best news on the web. We're broadcasting live from PRN Radio Network, the exclusive home of the Watchmen of America program. Hey, Watchmen. I'm your host, Joanne Moretti, and my great co-host, JoJo Norton, will be here with me shortly, and we appreciate you tuning in. Thank you very much. Our call-in number, as always, is 714-888-7404. And our chat rooms, both at Blog Talk Radio and right here at PRN, are open for you as well. Our awesome colleagues, Lynn, AstroTurf, and Anna, are all in the chat rooms putting the links to our sources, articles, documents, and other important information into the chat so you have them available to you. By the way, our colleagues are also fantastic researchers and journalists, investigators. A couple of them have their own newspaper, and they're just so much more, including friends. So please say hi to them when you get over to the chats. Thank you. And for me, thank you, ladies. We have a whole lot of news to catch up on today. I mean, it's breaking all over the place. But before we get to that, we have to first do our disclaimer. That just lets everybody who might be interested, like the feds or the NSA, FCC, or anyone else, that anything we say on this show is my responsibility and not that of our wonderful sponsors, the Watchmen of America, or PRN. The disclaimer goes like this. The comments made by hosts and or guest hosts or phone callers of the PRN Radio Network do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints, ideology, beliefs, etc., of members of the Watchmen of America program or the Patriot Resistance website, either in past, present, and even future broadcasts. All right, well, now that that's out of the way, let me open up JoJo's microphone here, and we'll get this party started. Hey, JoJo.
Hey.
Hey, how you doing today?
Busy day.
It sure
you know what
was.
I did tonight? I watched my phone as I dialed the show, and I had bars until the show dialed, and then it went to nothing. No connection thing. So it has something to do with me dialing the show.
Well,
so we'll see how long you can hear me, I guess.
Well, I can hear you really good right now.
Okay.
Hey, before we get into the show, I want to tell everybody that there's some tornadoes all over the place in the Midwest, Iowa right now. Sierra Gordo and Worth counties. If you can hear us, take shelter. Watch your record. Watch your emergency news. Pilgin in Nebraska got demolished today. I don't know if you saw it, JoJo, but there were two tornadoes on the ground, massive tornadoes, too. I don't know how they stayed going as long as they did. But, man, they were on the ground for a long time. That's some scary stuff right there.
Yeah, I watched it, and then I listened to the scanner for about an hour or so.
Yeah.
And it was, there was one dispatcher, I really liked the way she did it because a couple of the guys were out there clearing, and they'd say, oh, this house is okay, this house is okay. They said, well, we're clear here. Where do you want us to go? And the dispatcher just said, how about you just follow the tornado? And they said, okay. In other words, I can't dispatch you, but you can see it, so just follow behind it. So they did.
Yeah, let it lead you.
Yeah.
On our broadcast tonight, if there's any news that we have to break in with, I'm sure Lynn will, or AstroTurf or Anna will let us know that, announce this, take cover somewhere. A Marine down in Mexico, Tim Morisi, he fired his lawyer. I don't know what's going on down there in Mexico with the lawyers, but I think they want money. I think maybe we should just say, come on, man, just what's the ransom? Let's just get this done. But they are jerking this guy. There was a whole bunch of bikers that went down there over the weekend, and they did a nice little protest at the border, and a lot of people showed up for it. A couple of just the local townspeople came out. Now, the truckers gave them until today to release him, so I don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. But if they don't release that guy today, I think the truck drivers have a plan on shutting down all commerce, all highways going in and out of that border. So we'll see what happens there. I wanted to bring up Benghazi, too, because so far the only one that's been punished is Hicks. And he was the one that told the truth, remember?
Yeah.
Everybody else is off scot-free, the way I can see it. And, we got a lot of talk and very little action. We're going to get into that in a little while. Anything you want to bring up before we start the show, JoJo?
No, I do want to, when we get started on Iraq, Doug Hagman wrote a piece in the Canada Free Press that was, he pretty much summed it all up. I think we should at least read that one and then get started and then kick off all the little, the little details that we're going to also add to it. I have it somewhere if you want me to read it.
Yeah, you can read it. Let's do a couple of things before you get to it, though. Okay, I want to first tell him that Obama told Congress that 275 troops are headed to Iraq. He said he issued the letter today, this evening. Said Obama told Congress Monday evening he's sending up to 275 U.S. Armed Forces personnel to Iraq in order to provide support and security for U.S. personnel and the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad. In a letter Monday evening, of course, along with the letter, the White House press secretary released the following statement. Today, consistent with the War Powers Resolution, the President transmitted a report notifying the Congress that up to approximately 275 U.S. military personnel are deploying to Iraq to provide support and security for U.S. personnel in the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad. The personnel will provide assistance to the Department of State in connection with the temporary relocation of some staff from the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad to the U.S. Consulate General in Basra and Erbil, and to the Iraq Support Unit in Amman. That's Jordan. These U.S. military personnel are entering Iraq with the consent of the government of Iraq. The U.S. Embassy in Baghdad remains open, and a substantial majority of the U.S. Embassy presence in Iraq will remain in place, and the embassy will be fully equipped to carry out its national security mission. All right, now, that told you this evening that they are going to be deploying, okay? Well, a couple minutes before we went on the air, Josh Rogan said 170 U.S. troops are already arrived in Iraq from CENTCOM, 100 from outside the region, and their duties include airfield support. So they were already in Iraq when he sent this notice. And they said that there's 275. There's way more than that. Way more than that.
Yeah, we got 800 Marines sitting offshore on a ship, and we have several fast teams, like real close by. I'm not sure. I think some of them are on ships too. But correct me if I'm wrong. I thought he was supposed to ask Congress, not just tell them after the fact.
Yeah, well, they were told.
The War Powers Act. Wasn't he supposed to go to Congress and ask? permission or something along those lines?
No. I think he's within his rights here. I think that he has to notify them, and he's got like 60 days to complete this mission, or he has to go to them. He has like 60 days to play around.
I remember that with Bush. Okay, all right.
Yeah. So, but anybody who believes any of this is just I have no more words. But we're going to get into what's going on here.
Well, that's why I wanted to read Doug Hagman, because he pretty much sums it up, and then we can do the details,
All right, before we get to that Hagman, we'll do that right next. I want our colleague, Denise, you all know her. She has a show here tomorrow night. She put out the most fantastic, very blunt, very short sit-rep this morning, and I really would like to tell you what's going on here. There is nobody on the planet that I would trust more with foreign policy than this woman. She spends day and night. I mean, she knows things about she knows these people's parents. She can tell them apart. She knows who the Sunnis and the Shiites are, and the Levant and the ISIS are, and she knows their names, She knows Bin Kumu and Kawadawi and can pronounce them way better than I can. However, she wrote this morning. It says, while there is the obvious reports by way of the media on Iraq, there is much more to report. Here goes. I'm told that U.S. drones will begin strikes from later today. Iraq TV is reporting that the U.S. confirmed armed drones may be used in Iraq. Okay, so they're already doing that. Tuz Kurmutu, the Kurdish Peshmerga, said on Sunday that the security belt they have created on the southern edges of Tuz Kurmutu have prevented the militants of the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, otherwise known as ISIS, from bringing their fight to the Kurdish areas. Peshmerga officers in the area also told Ruda that the ISIS have contacted them by courier saying, if you don't attack us, we won't attack you. So they got this little deal going on there. Next one. Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel today ordered the amphibious transport dock ship USS Mesa Verde into the Arabian Gulf. CVN 77 CBG has arrived in the Persian Gulf and is flanked by the USS Philippine Sea, a Ticonderoga-class guided missile cruiser, and the USS Truxtun, an Arleigh Burke missile destroyer. The USS Mesa Verde is a San Antonio-class amphibious transport dock, which is equipped to deliver a fully equipped battalion of up to 800 Marines, and it was dispatched to the Persian Gulf. Next, John Kerry and Hillary policy wonk Mike Morrell both agree that it is prudent to ally with Iran to take on the ISIS insurgency in Iraq. Iran was once again listed as and summarized by the State Department as a state sponsor of terrorism. We're going to get to that. I'm going to put a little circle there because we have to go back to that. Next, as the Kurds, Peshmerga, are general allies of the United States, they have been dispatched to Iran to collaborate a joint agreement to take on the Shiite factions in Iraq as long as everyone leaves the Kurds alone. This is easily to be an Iranian ploy. It has already been proven historically that releasing detainees from Guantanamo is not a good idea. While some have returned to the fight, others have been working diligently in other countries to not only recruit but to fundraise. Imagine the possibilities for the newly released Taliban 5, new arrests occurring. Treasure trove. The treasure trove included names and nom de guerre of all foreign fighters, senior leaders, and their code words, initials of sources inside ministries, and full accounts of finances. We were all amazed, and so were the Americans, a senior intelligence official said. None of us had known most of this information. Officials, including CIA officers, were still decrypting and analyzing the flash sticks when Abu Hajjaj's prophecy was realized. ISIS swept through much of northern and central Iraq over the 3 stunning days, seizing control of Mosul and Tikrit. By the end of the week, we soon realized that we had to do some accounting for them, said the official. Before Mosul, their total cash and assets were $875 million. Afterwards, with the money they robbed from banks and the value of the military supplies they looted, they could add another $1.5 billion to that. Laid bare were a series of staggering numbers that would be the pride of any major enterprise, let alone an organization that was a startup 3 years ago. Next, the Iranian forces deployed to Kurdistan disputed areas and Nineveh province in response to the Islamic State of Iraq and Sham ISIS are made up of Kurds, Lurs, and Turks. Security sources from Kurdish cities in Iran state that some Iranian soldiers have entered Iraq's disputed areas and settled there under the excuse of fighting against ISIS. But on Wednesday, a number of Iranian soldiers came close to Kanakin, and they are high military advisors who previously trained Assad's soldiers in Syria. And now, finally, the most disturbing of all. He is the smiling chief executioner who dares to bare his face in grotesque videos of himself executing prisoners, referred to as Desert Lion by his supporters. Shakir Wahibi is the public face of the army threatening to destroy Iraq and is the chief executioner of the ISIS terror group. Unlike many other commanders in the Islamist military organization, he appears on camera without covering his face. Now, it's claimed that he revels in being a jihadist poster boy and has even attracted female admirers from across the Middle East. Now, you all know, too, that was excellent, Denise. You all know that al-Baghdadi was released in 2009 by Obama. He was picked up in 2005 and released in 2009. And he's the one that's leading this march through. All right, now JoJo wants to talk to you about this Canada Free Press article now that we got the sit rep out. Go ahead, JoJo.
Okay. Hagman wrote this morning, and although I don't always 100% agree with Hagman, he is pretty much spot on most of the stuff we cover, he covers. And so through our own research, we pretty much know he's pretty spot on. But anyway, he wrote this morning, the stage is being set for World War III. Today, every American, everyone in the West needs to step away from their backyard barbecues and pool parties and pay close attention. Look long and hard at what is being engineered in Iraq, for life as we know it will soon change. For Americans, Iraq is a half a world away. For others, it's much closer. For everyone, though, it's soon to become very personal for all of us. America, the West, and the world is bearing witness to one of the most significant geopolitical events of the last century taking place in Iraq throughout the Middle East. But few fully understand the enormity of what they are seeing. Even fewer understand the big picture or thinking big enough, as all is not what it appears. We are witnessing the second act of the play about which I've previously written, which is the setting of the stage for World War III. Our world as we know it will soon change, and no one will be left untouched by the events that have been orchestrated by the globalist screenwriters and directors. The average American sees sudden, unexpected chaos, death, and destruction in Iraq. Elected leaders, the corporate media, and cheerleaders of partisan politics are presenting these events as unfortunate and unforeseeable, or even worse, the consequence of the alleged incompetence by the renegade-in-chief and his determined band of outlaws. They are, however, neither base or incompetence, nor were they unforeseeable. Rather, we are watching the opening scene of Act 2, which is the final cast placement in the run-up to World War III, as was always intended and long in the making, separated only by a brief intermission due to the public exposure of Benghazi. Briefly, the first part of the latest play taking place on the global stage began with the fictional tale of the Arab Spring, which was supposedly the spontaneous uprising by freedom fighters against oppressive tyrants. It was neither spontaneous nor engineered at the hands of lovers of freedom. It was a Western intelligence operation designed to change the balance of power for future events, future acts of the play on the world stage. An important act of the play involved Libya and the ouster of Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi, as I detailed in my August 3, 2013 column titled Unmasking the Embassy Threat. In my earlier column of October the 8th, 2012, Lemmings at the Precipice of World War III, I warned that we are at the precipice of global conflict, World War III. The killing of Ambassador Stevens and other Americans in Libya was merely the prelude, like the opening scenes in a Bond film. But we haven't yet grasped how it relates to the rest of the script. During the Arab Spring, we thought we were seeing trailers for several different films before the main attraction. But little did we know how seamlessly the various clips all tie together at the end. The show has already started. We are now well into the opening act after intermission. As I wrote, if the script proceeds as written, The entire geopolitical world and balance of power could, and most likely will, change with this next curtain call. No one will be left untouched by the coming event. And now, here we are. Following the last curtain call, we are watching the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, ISIS, a U.S. CIA, DOS-backed organization, taking over Iraq with relative ease. Cue the video cameras and audience attention to the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad for a flashback to the April 30th, 1975 airlift. He's referring to the fall of Saigon, if someone doesn't know that. The march of ISIS will proceed as intended, but it will not stop at Baghdad. They are headed for Syria and have their sights set on removing Bashar al-Assad from power. The evidence of a Western-backed operation. It's unlikely that you will see the multitudes of new Toyota pickups or the NATO Western military armaments currently in use by the Muslim Brotherhood-backed ISIS on your television screen, as the global power brokers would rather keep those telling images from anyone who might be paying close attention in America. It was the current Secretary of State, John Kerry, following the lead of his predecessor, Hillary Rodham Clinton, answering to the current renegade-in-chief, and his globalist handlers who toured the Middle East in late December 2013 and gave ISIS the green light to do what they will. So he's saying Kerry went last December and gave them the green light to do whatever. As the U.S. would not interfere. Not only would the U.S. take a step back, we would leave our military hardware and armaments intact for ISIS to conduct their blood sacrifices in typical Wahhabi fashion. It is unlikely that the corporate media will expose that development of ISIS was years in the making, but first developing in 2004 as the Organization of Monotheism and Jihad, and then as Al-Qaeda in Iraq. In 2006, they changed their name to ISIS. It's even more unlikely that you will hear about the financing of ISIS, or it's perhaps the most heavily funded terror organization in the world. Even before ISIS overran Mosul last week and pillaged Iraqi banks of hundreds of millions of dollars, the ISIS financial documents that were seized during operations in Iraq disclosed their net worth before they entered Mosul to be at least $900 million. So they have plenty of funding. And here I'm going to skip down to the bigger picture. The events of today are not taking place in a vacuum. I have written many times about the significance of Benghazi, the third rail of U.S. politics and media. The attack in Benghazi that claimed 4 American lives was a planned event at the nation-state level, a proxy battle by Russia to expose the flow of weapons from northern Africa into Syria, Turkey, Jordan, and other key areas for the sole purpose of toppling Assad and installing a Muslim Brotherhood government, much like Egypt. Despite 4 separate attempts to blame Assad for crimes against humanity, including the use of chemical weapons, the non-corporate media, that's us, exposed the false flags for what they were. Accordingly, the globalists have to switch to Plan B to topple Assad. Today, the global power brokers are using ISIS to march through Baghdad and into Syria through the newly opened southeastern front via Iraq. They are using our assets and our blessing to do so, which should cause Americans to ask, for what did some 4,500 U.S. soldiers die? And I want to interject here. A friend of mine counsels depressed and suicidal soldiers, and it is on a huge, huge uptick today. Many, many, many. And I have a very good friend who has written a letter, and I have talked to him today, and he's just very despondent and depressed. You know, he lost half his platoon over there, and I don't know. It's sad enough for us. Can you imagine if you were one of those that went over there and either got hurt or lost your friends or whatever, and now you're seeing this?
Well, I'm wondering if our military is ever going to say enough and just, stop following this guy's orders.
I don't know.
Anyway, how much more can he beat on our military before we get it? He hates them. Okay? Now, and where are all these lefties? Every single day. There was reporters embedded with soldiers. All right, Obama just picked up and made a War Powers Act.
Well,
just
but
like
they're
Libya.
saying
Remember that?
But these soldiers are saying the embedded soldiers were pretty much told what to do. But let me just say this. Doug Hagman says this. The ultimate goal is to kill the U.S. dollar through a proxy war with Russia while the renegaded chief, his band of outlaws, and his global financiers hide under the pretext of plausible deniability. For it is the destruction of the middle class through economic Armageddon, vis-a-vis killing the dollar, that is needed to create a new global economic order and ultimately the destruction of the sovereignty of the United States. So, look him up, Canada Free Press. You can read the whole article. Might want to read it a couple of times. So.
Yeah.
Well, listen, while I'm on this, since I was already talking about these soldiers, I want to read what my friend Daniel wrote. He's a D5 retired sergeant from the U.S. Army. It won't take me but just a second. This is from Daniel. He says, so apparently the Iraq war is over, according to our omnipotent president. He left the country in the willing and able hands of the Iraqi military. I guess the thousands of people being slaughtered by the ISIS terrorists is just business as usual. I knew the war wasn't just what they said it was about. I knew we weren't there solely to stabilize the local economy and ensure peace, life, and liberty to the Iraqi people. I knew that our politicians on both sides of the aisle were incurring money hand over fist. But for us, it wasn't about that. For us, we were there to help the people. Yes, we were there to kill the monsters that preyed on that land, but we were supposed to be that country's savior. We wanted to leave a legacy of hope and of change and of peace. Those of you that know me, and I mean really know me, know that I have very little trust and even less adoration for Arabs in general as a result of my war. But even with everything that happened, I really believe that we could make a difference in the lives of the innocent, the people that just wanted to live, the men and women that just wanted to be free, the children that just wanted life. This country is not the stoic hero we were told stories about as children. There is no shining light for the world to see. We are simply a product of corruption and greed, and now my brothers and I are left to carry the burden of a war lost by politicians too weak-minded and too soft-stomached to handle the reality of this world. I think I understand now why our father's generation is so messed up as a result of Vietnam. Everything they did, everything they saw, and everything they lost was for nothing. Their brothers and their souls were sold out for the 30 pieces of silver. Our brothers and our souls were sold out for the 30 pieces of silver. This really is our Vietnam. I didn't want to believe it, but I guess it's true. And he lost half of his men over there. When he
wow,
was
what
there.
A letter.
He was there in
right
07 and 08.
There it is right there.
Mm-hmm.
They were told they're making a difference. When you see the Iraqi girls, they could loosen up the hijabs, take off the burqas, go to school, get an education. When you see the young men, playing soccer in the street with other young men and not, getting pushed around by the Taliban or pushed around by this one or that one or beat up and, whatever. They did think they were making a difference. And then Obama pulls out too soon, wastes everything we have fought for and improved over there. Left all that equipment for the enemy. The girls, right now, they're back under the burqas. You know that, if they're even alive.
Yeah.
So, our soldiers, we had won that war before Obama lost that war. And now, involving Iran, they want to work with Iran. We didn't need Iran the first time we went in there. We didn't need Iran when we left there.
He said, technically we haven't won a war since World War II. He said, but we've won every battle. He said, we, as in them in Iraq, and I'm sure he's talking about Afghanistan too, we won every battle, but we haven't won a war.
Well, I got to tell you.
Because of the politicians.
That
and our buddy Manny, we both have him. He was talking about the other day, he was so worried about all his friends he made over there. He had a lot of friends that were Iraqis, and he was putting pictures on his Facebook page of all his Iraqi buddies. And he's, worried to death about them,
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, it's really bad. It's really bad.
If you know a veteran out there, you have a veteran of Iraq in your family or friends, you need to touch base with them. You need to talk to them. You need to make sure they're okay right now.
Yeah, definitely, because they got to be, any of them that had the PTSD, this can do nothing but make it worse.
Well, even if you don't have PTSD, just the thought of what's going on and what you suffered and the sacrifices your buddies made, and what if you're sitting here at home watching TV and you've got, you don't have two legs or something, and you're watching this, and you just gave up your legs, I don't know. It'd be hard to stomach.
It's hard to, I can't even imagine what's going through these soldiers' heads. It's got to be nauseating. They lost their buddies. They lost parts of their own body. They lost their innocence. They lost, everything they believed in. And now, for Obama to even consider involving Iran, to even consider going in there, right now, the way I'm looking at it, there's no good guys in there. Look, the Arabs are the Sunnis. The Iranians are the Shiites. The Arabs and the Iranians hate each other. So who's Obama working for or with? What's the deal going on here? They're having a proxy war. They're using Iraq. Now, how did this group, in 3 years, get this big? The guy was only released in 2009. So 5 years. How did they get this big? How did they get this much money? How did they have this much access to weapons and stuff? I know they were getting them out of Syria. I know they were pretending to be rebels, and Obama was arming them then. This to me sounds like Obama has done more for the Muslim caliphate than Mohammed himself. Mohammed didn't take over the whole Middle East like that. Obama did, though. He enabled it. Something more serious is going on. And then you got this Mohammed Alibiari. You all remember him, right? He was appointed to DHS. He's a big shot in the Muslim Brotherhood.
He's one of the ones that's in our administration.
Yes, he's in our administration. Well, he tweeted out today, he says, as I've said before, inevitable that caliphate returns. Alibiari tweeted in response to a question about the terror groups Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, ISIS, which is currently seeking to overthrow the Iraqi government. Choice only whether we support European Union like Muslim Union vision or not, wrote Alibiari, who has advised numerous federal, state, and local law enforcement organizations on Homeland Security-related matters. Homeland Security, this guy's DHS. He's
Homeland Security. Think about that, Joe.
Yeah. He's devout Muslim Brotherhood. He's absolutely giddy that this is going on in Iraq. The caliphate is expanding. It's not just Iraq. It's Iraq, Iran, Syria. Lebanon is having a real bad problem with them. Hezbollah has gone active again because they're dealing with an influx of people. Now, Alibaba there, what the hell is his name? Aladdin, Baghdadi. He said that after they're done with Iraq and Syria, they're going into Jordan, Egypt, and Israel. So hold on to your hat. Now, last night we were watching airplanes on the live airplane feed. Every plane that was headed in that direction was over water over the Persian Gulf. It was like a steady stream of them. There was a big opening between Saudi Arabia and Iraq that there were no planes at all in. This morning, there was one plane in Iraq, and it was up in the northeastern corner, up where the Kurds are. And that plane was a Lufthansa. So I'm thinking that the Germans are evacuating people out of the northern part of Iraq. But that's another thing. Well, it
could have just been their flight plan because that was an Airbus, and that's an overseas flight probably.
Yeah, but you remember, I mean, there was a whole parade of them just over the water. They weren't even over land at all. And then just that one plane in Iraq, that seemed a little funny to me. Like I said, Alibiari, he's bad news. In case you didn't know, by the way, Obama released another 12 jihadis. They weren't out of Gitmo. They were out of a different prison. But that was after the 5 Taliban. LGS has this. I think Barack, this is a quote from Valerie Jarrett it begins with. I think Barack knew he had a God-given talent that were extraordinary. He knows exactly how smart he is. He knows how perceptive he is. He knows what a good reader of people he is. And he knows that he has the ability, the extraordinary, uncanny ability to take 1,000 different perspectives, digest them, and make sense out of them. And I think that he has never really been challenged intellectually. So what I sense in him was not just a restless spirit, but somebody with such extraordinary talents that had to be really taxed in order for him to be happy. He's been bored to death his whole life. He's just too talented to do what ordinary people do. All right, so when people are calling him a bumbling idiot, incompetent, oh, no, that would be a grave mistake. He's anything but incompetent. Actually, if you look at it from a perspective of you want to destroy the United States of America, you want the New World Order, and you want this caliphate. And the reason you want the caliphate is because if you look at it rationally, Islam is a self-policing society. The men control the women and children. The imams control the men. So if you want to be the big boss, all you have to do is control the imams, right? Well, that right there is a personal, self-policing society. He is not incompetent at all. This is extremely intelligent, and if you ask me, he has succeeded beyond even his own wildest dreams. I don't think he thought it was going to be this easy. He told us the other day he hated us. At one of his speeches at one of these high schools he was at, he said that the problem that he's having with America is society itself. Oh, is that a fact, Mr. Obama? He hates us. Of course, that would explain why he's bringing in an invasion of people that, he does like. Anyhow, this goes on, and it says, Reuters, the Obama administration has quietly repatriated a dozen detainees from a small U.S. military prison in Afghanistan, moving a modest step closer towards winding down the United States' controversial post-9/11 detainee system. Obama, in a letter to Congress released on Thursday, informed U.S. lawmakers that about 38 non-Afghan prisoners remained at the Parwan Detention Center outside of Kabul, down from around 50 a few months ago. A U.S. defense official, speaking on conditions of anonymity, said that a Frenchman, a Kuwaiti, and 10 Pakistani prisoners were sent back to their respective home countries at the end of May. The remaining detainees include Yemeni, Tunisian, and more Pakistani nationals, and a Russian who the United States is also considering trying in a military or civilian court. It says the transfers were not publicly disclosed, and they underscore the challenges the Obama administration faces in shutting down the Parwan and the larger U.S. military prison, Guantanamo. That's the goal. He wants those prisons closed at all costs. Might as well now he let the top 5 out. The rest of them is just chump change now.
Well, and this day, I don't have the article, but, we've always heard of the 12th Amman, whatever it's called.
Yep.
The 12th Amman comes, it's going to be the destruction of the world and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, well, I think that Obama fancies himself as the Mahdi or the 12th Imam.
Maybe so. Maybe so.
I'm telling you, nobody, no Islamic imam or anything else has done more for this Islamic global caliphate than Obama himself. Even
we know how narcissistic he is, so, he's off the chain, off the top narcissistic, so, maybe he fancies himself to be that, so he's going to make it come true.
Right.
They used to think it was Ahmadinejad, but maybe he passed that on to Obama. And, think about this, people. He only has 2 years left, or is it actually 18 months? So he's got to get in a real big hurry. He's got to get in a big hurry right now to get this done.
Yeah, actually he only has until January because we got an election coming up, and if he loses that Senate, Reid will still be Senate President until January, like around the 20th, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So look how much damage he's done in just the past few weeks. And he's accelerated. His window of opportunity is closing. You know what else is bothering me too? And you're all gonna think I'm crazy, but I gotta tell it to you anyhow. The aircraft carrier, George H.W. Bush, that's over there.
Yeah, that's kind of ironic, isn't it?
I'm very concerned about that ship because it's really not an if, but he's involved in this. What a prize that would be to sink that ship with that name.
Yep.
I am very, very concerned, you know. I mean, optics are everything, and to sink the G.H.W. Bush, what a payback that would be. They would celebrate in the streets for a decade.
Mhm.
I'm scared.
But what would they sink it with?
Anna says, we are going to think you're crazy? Like, we don't already? Okay.
But let's...
no, she says, we are going to think you're crazy. Laugh out loud. I don't think I'm crazy. I'm scared. You know? Go ahead, Joe.
They would have to have, you know, a rogue band of... I mean, I know they got Stinger missiles and blah, 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 but I don't think they have anything that can sink a ship. They might would have to have a little help from a proxy country, probably one that we're fixing to team up with. Maybe Iran could take it out. Our new friend, Iran.
Yeah, our new best friend.
Our new best friend, BFF.
Yeah, JoJo, they can take us out. They have everything they need. The Iraqi military just dropped their stuff and ran. They have everything they need, from F-16s to helicopters.
That's not going to take a ship out. I mean, the ship has all kinds of... They wouldn't be able to get close to it. It would have to be something coming in from long range.
Well,
you know.
Yeah, or one of those small ships like the Cole. You know, just ram them.
I don't know. This is an aircraft carrier. This thing is as big as a city. I mean, it would take some major something to take it down.
Yeah, Anna's agreeing with you.
There's nothing the militants have that can take that ship out. But some of our new BFFs could probably do it.
Yeah.
Hey, you know, wouldn't that make a perfect false flag?
Yeah, well, do they have bunker busters or anything over there? I don't know, man. I'm a little concerned.
Russia and Iran does.
Unless they're going to, I don't know, something, maybe green on blue. I don't know. So I'm just worried about that particular ship. Speaking of missiles, Front Page Magazine says that Hillary Clinton supplied the Stinger missiles that the Taliban used to attack the U.S. chopper. Yep, Obama Incorporated.
I don't doubt that. They probably came right out of Libya. That's probably the whole Benghazi deal.
Well, this one here says Libya and Qatar. Obama Incorporated keep insisting that Qatar could be trusted when it was already concluded by the 9/11 Commission that the Islamist tyranny had ties to the attacks on the United States. Since then, Qatar has become so out of control in its backing of jihadists that it's been disavowed by Saudi Arabia and the UAE. But that just made Obama embrace it even harder. Consider this. Obama is hugging a regime that the Saudis think is too extreme. That's how bad things are. This latest revelation is no surprise at all. The New York Times had already let it slip that even Obama Incorporated was uncomfortable with whom the Qataris were arming. Within weeks of endorsing Qatar's plan to send weapons there in the spring of 2011, the White House began receiving reports that they were going to Islamic groups. They were more anti-democratic, more hardline, closer to an extreme version of Islam than the main rebel alliance in Libya. It's called plausible deniability, so now we know what was being denied. The Obama administration isn't only giving the Taliban back its commanders, it's giving them weapons. Military records and sources reveal that on July 25th, 2012, Taliban fighters in Kunar province successfully targeted a U.S. Army CH-47 helicopter with a new generation Stinger missile. The next day, an explosive ordnance disposal team arrived to pick through the wreckage and found unexploded pieces of a missile casing that could only belong to a Stinger missile. Lodged in the retina cell, they found one fragment that contained an entire serial number. My sources in the U.S. Special Operations community believe the Stinger fired against the Chinook was part of the same lot the CIA turned over to the Qataris in early 2011. Weapons Hillary Rodham Clinton's State Department intended for anti-Gaddafi forces in Libya. They believe the Qataris delivered between 50 and 60 of those same Stingers to the Taliban in early 2012, and an additional 200 SA-24 Igla-S surface-to-air missiles. So Qatar is now expected to hold 5 Taliban commanders?
Yeah,
right.
They let them live. They didn't hold it. They might have held him long enough to let him go to the bathroom when they got off the plane. That's about how long they held him.
Well, Lara Logan, you remember her, right?
Yeah.
She's the one that was molested over there by the Muslim Brotherhood.
And look,
well,
she's been over there. She's been a Mideast correspondent her whole career, and she's top of the line. She's like Cheryl Atkinson, and because she wanted to report the truth, she got busted. I'm not busted, but now whatever, fired, let go, whatever.
Yeah, for telling the truth. Same as Cheryl Atkinson. So if you tell the truth, you're in trouble. Like Hicks. Lara Logan, she says she was on Sunday's Face the Nation, and she explained the disaster of ISIS obtaining U.S. weapons from the Iraqi government and what it means in terms of security for military personnel. She writes, members of the terrorist organization ISIS have not only taken over weapons left behind for the Iraqis to defend themselves, they know how to use them strategically. Their training has taught them how to move militarily on the battlefield, better techniques taking and holding territory, and also to defend it. That's why the U.S. military, both civilian and military intelligence sources, regarded this as so troubling. Once you put people in the fight, who knows? For example, the weapons that they've been seizing, if you're just using them tactically or here and there randomly, that gives you something of an edge, but not much. What happens now if you know how to use them strategically, how to employ them across both in Syria and in Iraq, use those assets to change outcomes of the war? She goes on to list some of the equipment left behind by the U.S., including armored personnel carriers, 50 Stryker assault vehicles, Apache helicopters with more on the way, and F-16s, also more on the way. Those are the kind of weapons that we must be hoping the Iraqis still have held on to, she said. But what's even more troubling is the fact that Stinger missiles have been captured by ISIS. Logan warns of the potential and devastating consequences of such an acquirement. Also heard they have 200 tanks that they've acquired. So that's a lot of hardware, ladies and gentlemen.
Yep.
That's a lot of hardware.
Yep. Well, I don't know what the right thing to do is. I mean, I know we need to go over there and protect our embassy and get our people out. That I do know. That we have to do. But as far as anything else, I'm just really torn. You hear every side of the argument, but I can't see going back over there.
Yeah, I hear you. Middle East Briefing, I have a big article here. I'm not going to read the whole thing. But the Middle East Briefing is telling us that in Tunisia, in Egypt, in North Africa, Turkey, and Jordan, the Muslim Brotherhood has extensive cooperation with the Obama administration. And there's, through an ongoing Freedom of Information Act, thousands of pages of documents of the U.S. State Department's dealing with the Muslim Brotherhood are in the process of being declassified and released to the public. But, some of them, one of them says confidential. It says the following: Benghazi meeting with Libyan Muslim Brotherhood on April 2nd, 2012. Imagine that, April 2nd, 2012. They had a Muslim Brotherhood meeting. The Mission Benghazi met with senior member of the Muslim Brotherhood Steering Committee, who would speak at the April 5th Carnegie Endowment Islamists in Power Conference in Washington. He described the Muslim Brotherhood decision to form a political party as both an opportunity and an obligation in post-revolution Libya. Another State Department paper marked sensitive but unclassified contained talking points for Deputy Secretary of State William Burns, his schedule for July 14th, 2012 meeting with Mohammed Sawan, the Muslim Brotherhood leader, who is also head of the Brotherhood Justice Construction Party. That document's heavily redacted, but nevertheless provides clear indication of Washington's sympathies for the emergence of the Muslim Brotherhood as a major political force in the post-Gaddafi Libya. So they did the same thing in Libya that they did in Egypt. The Egyptians were like, hell no, and moved the Muslim Brotherhood out of there. Libya is still in conflict between Al-Qaeda and what they're calling rebels. Now they're even calling ISIS rebels. Can you imagine that?
Well,
ISIS is now rebels. They're not terrorists. They damn well are. And Obama released them. Obama released the Taliban leader, released ISIS leader, released anybody he could release. He released 36,000 illegals out of prisons in America. You know, guys, we better stop paying attention because we are on a precipice. We are, if we haven't lost it already, we are on the verge of losing the United States of America as a sovereign nation. We're just a cluster flock right now. Things are getting real bad, ladies and gentlemen. And he still wants to take your guns away, too, by the way. But he wants to arm everybody else, wants to arm all the feds. How convenient, huh? Won't that be convenient?
Well, I mean, none of this surprises us or any of our listeners. We've been on this, like, well, you know.
White on rice.
Well, yeah. The only thing I think of was another Southern saying that I probably shouldn't say on air. I was like having the pause thinking, I can't think of another one.
Yeah, like ants on a jelly sandwich.
Yeah, something. There you go. That's probably more appropriate. You caught me. You know me well.
Yeah. Trying to help you out there.
Yeah, thanks, because I was like, stop, don't say it. We're not surprised. In fact, I expected all this a lot sooner. 2 years ago. So if you hadn't prepped already, you're way too late. So all I can tell you, and, you know, that's all I can say. And how many years did we spend on the radio telling people, you better get ready, you better prep, you better do this, you better do that. So if anybody hasn't done one damn thing toward prepping, sorry, buddy. I won't tell you where my garden is either.
If 48,000 little kids can sneak across the border undetected, how many jihadis can get across? How many jihadis can get across who are good at hiding?
I would say about 10 times that many.
Mm-hmm.
But first place, 48,000 little kids have helped. Excuse me. I think we brought them here ourselves, probably in C-130 airplane, but, you know, we hadn't proved that yet.
Yeah. We're going to get to that because there's some breaking stuff on those kids, too. Hey, the Palestinian Authority president, you know, the ones that hate the Israelis and kidnapping students and all that. Well, the Palestinian president's wife is in a hospital in Israel. She had surgery. Mm-hmm. Virtual Jerusalem says Israeli media reports Sunday that the wife of Palestinian Authority chief Mahmoud Abbas was convalescing in a top Tel Aviv hospital after undergoing surgery. The report by Yeditot Aharonot said that Abbas's wife was being held under heavy security in a private room with no roommates. News of the hospitalization comes as Israeli forces conduct an intensive search for 3 missing Israeli teens. Ayal Rifra, he's 19, Naftali Frankel is 16, and Gilad Shar is also 16. In a statement Saturday night, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said that the ultimate responsibility for the return of the boys lay with Abbas. The Prime Minister said that he had demanded that the Palestinian Authority, headed by Abu Mazen Abbas, from whose territory the kidnappers came, do whatever necessary to help the hostages get home safely. That is the Palestinian Authority's responsibility. Anyhow, the story goes on about Abbas's wife. You know, she was doing good. She had surgery on her legs. She's been hospitalized since last Thursday and doing well, and she's being protected and kept comfortable. But
well, you know, hey, you know, looking back, and just as bad as we've pissed off Israel, you know, Israel would have the capability too of doing some damage to whoever and whatever.
Yeah, that wouldn't be in their best interest, though, to do anything. Well, I don't know.
We have helped surround Israel. We're helping the demise of Israel.
I know. We're not very good allies, are we?
Not we, the Americans, but we as in the administration.
The Egyptians
I don't know.
are having a hard time understanding why we're not stopping this man.
I know, because Americans are a weak bunch of wusses.
You can't get 3 Americans in the same room to agree on anything.
Yeah, I know. Well, it's like I've said 10,000 times. It's not in our backyard. It's not affecting us directly yet. And that's part of what Doug Hagelin's message was.
By the time they stop blowing stuff up in the United States, it's already too late.
Well, I mean, and, you know, don't you think, and I've said this for 2 or 3 years, we have cells all over the United States, and I'm sure they're waiting on for some message or code word or however they'll be notified. It'll probably be CNN or MSNBC. They'll put the code word out, and boom, they'll go. There'll just be pop, 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 little things here and there, and we'll be like everybody else. We'll have car bombs and suicide missions and this, that, and the other all over the place. That's my theory.
Well, I will tell you right now, there's just no way that once they're here, they're here. How are you going to root them out? And they are here. You know, damn well that border is running wide open. If you can get Guatemalan gangs in here, you can get jihadis in here without even breaking a sweat. Just
they've been here.
Yeah.
They've been here 5, 6, 7, 8 years. And they're coming over more and more and more in the last year. I mean, they're everywhere. They're on every street corner. They're in every convenience store. They own them. They're everywhere. And all the big cities are getting infiltrated with these, you know. Dallas has got a whole lot. Houston's got a whole lot. I don't know about New Orleans, but
yeah, you know what they do too, JoJo, that they do to us? All right, you see on TV that, you know, these little cave dwellers, and they're all dressed in rags, and they're all sitting around a fire, and they're going in and out of the cave. Did anybody ever wonder how they're filming this? You know, there's no electricity in caves. You know, I mean, Fred Flintstone, his electricity wasn't real. It was fiction. But, you know, how are they filming this? They're not living in caves. They're living at Hyatt Regencies and embassy suites. You know, they show you these burned out shells in these caves and stuff. You can see caves like that in the Blue Hills. It doesn't mean everybody up in Boston lives in them. So
well, yeah, but I mean they got these little solar pad things you roll out and lay on the ground. You can hook your computer or cell phone, all kinds of crap up to it.
Yeah,
and it generates enough electricity.
My point is they are pretending to live in the 7th century. But they're driving around in brand new Toyota trucks, and they know how to fire these guns, and, you know, they know how to fly these planes that they just confiscated and helicopters and stuff. They are not cave dwellers. That's all propaganda, every bit of it. They live in homes just like us. They drive cars just like us. They go to the store just like us. You know, they cook on their stoves, and they plug in their appliances, and they're on their internet. You know, forget that. Forget what you're seeing on these propaganda films. They're not living in caves. That's just not how it is. You know, they're not living up in the mountains in caves. Those mountains are crawling with people. You know, they're living in ski chalets up in the mountains. I want to do one more report of NATO, and then we're going to take a break. NATO says that they are not to blame for the vanishing planes from the radar. I don't know if you all know it, but last week a whole bunch of planes disappeared off radar for a few minutes, and they were voice bringing them in.
Yeah, and it was going to Austria. My family was en route to Austria then. I hadn't talked to them, but that's when they were traveling to Austria.
Oh, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Well, NATO is saying that they're not to blame, but there's some very important information in this article that tells you what they can do. Like I said, this is from Reuters. NATO said on Sunday it was not to blame for recent incidents in which dozens of aircraft briefly vanished from air traffic control radar screens in Austria, Germany, and the Czech Republic and Slovakia. The Slovak State Air Traffic Service Company said on Friday that the brief disappearance of planes from radar screens on June 5th and 10th was connected to a military exercise whose goal was the interruption of radio communication frequencies. It did not identify the military force organizing the exercise, but Austrian media said it was NATO. The military alliance, in response to a request for a comment, said it did carry out some training that involved localized and low-power jamming in the skies over Hungary during the June 2nd to 6th period, and that it was currently conducting similar training in southern Italy from June 9th until the 20th. However, it said no jamming was conducted on June 5th. Our assessment is that NATO did not cause any interference with civilian air traffic control frequencies. It goes on. But, you know, that's a bunch of hogwash, too. And they are purposely having training. So they can disappear planes. There you go. They can make planes disappear. Now, I wonder if that might be connected to some recent plane disappearances. You know,
maybe
so
we should. I bet the ISIS guys know where the Flight 370 is.
yeah, well, on this show, we're sticking to the original story. That plane was taken. There was no way in hell those people from Freescale were going to make it to China with their prototype and their patent. It was not going to happen. You know what that patent was for? Making planes disappear. Obviously, it worked.
Oh, the irony
China's
of
not
it. Yeah,
getting it.
Yeah.
All right. On that note, let's take a quick break.
Well,
get yourself
before
a
we do, I
cigarette
got a
or
little.
something to drink.
I got a little breaking news that popped up. Actually, it happened Friday night. If you're a football fan, Johnny Football got arrested for possession of a controlled substance. And it seems, I'm not sure, last Friday night, early Saturday morning. So Johnny Football is not going to be able to keep his nose clean, it doesn't look like. Johnny Manziel, Texas A&M football, first round Heisman. I think he won the Heisman. Pretty sure. Whatever. Just thought I'd throw that out there.
Oh. I don't know who Johnny Football is.
Well, you're not from around here. You know. All right. Go to break.
All right. We'll be right back, ladies and gentlemen. Well, hey, everybody. We're back. You're listening to Moretti Underground, the Liberty Report, right here at PRN Radio Network, the exclusive home of the Watchmen of America program. Hey, Watchmen. I love those guys. I'm Joanne Moretti, and my great co-host, JoJo Norton, is here with me, too, and we're happy you stuck around. Thank you. Our call-in number, if anybody wants to call us, is 714-888-7404. And we have great chat rooms going on, one at Blog Talk Radio and the other one right here at PRN. Our colleagues, Lynn and Anna and AstroTurf, are in there putting all the links to our stories and documents and sources into the chat rooms. And it's a really nice, convenient courtesy. And thank you, ladies. You do a great job in there. And I think maybe Anna just headed off to bed. So good night, Anna. Sleep well. All right, JoJo, anything you want to bring up before we move on? Because we got some stuff coming up now. It's going to make your head explode.
Yeah, go for it.
All right. John Kerry, you all know him, right? Mm-hmm. Secretary of State. You noticed the world was burning down and, all that stuff going on in the Middle East and the jihadis and everybody coming across the border. Well, that's not important. Clear your mind.
Global warming.
That's it. Yep. The only thing that you should be concerned about is the extreme dangers of climate change being our biggest threat. John Kerry says protecting the oceans from climate change is a vital security issue. Imagine that. This is from Breitbart. With the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, ISIS, advancing rapidly through Iraq and posting images of their brutal mass executions, plans have begun to evacuate America's embassy in Baghdad. In Washington, however, Secretary of State John Kerry hosted a conference on the world's real vital security issues, climate change. Kerry, who has remarked intermittently in interviews on the current crisis in Iraq, spent the morning hosting the State Department's Our Ocean Conference, a summit of 80 countries and academic experts designed to engage global leaders in a discussion on how to save the world's oceans from the effect of climate change. There, Secretary Kerry announced that the world had a shared responsibility to keep the seas clean and encouraged global leaders to see climate change and the protections of the seas as a national security issue, not an environmental one. Kerry addressed preemptively concerns that he was focusing time on climate change when the world required his attention on much graver and more immediate threats. For anyone who questions why we are here when there are so many areas of conflict and so many issues of vital concern as there are, he announced, no one should mistake that the protection of our oceans is a vital international security issue. Kerry also noted that because of the conflict in Iraq, he would not be able to attend every event at the conference. Are you kidding me? All right, now we knew climate change was going to be the new cause de célèbre. However, climate change, they call that weather, all right? Scientists say that the polar caps aren't melting because of climate change. They're melting because of an under-ice volcano, and they can prove it. We've been doing this now for how long? Climate change. Climate change is a scam. Obama started the Chicago Climate Exchange. And the Chicago Climate Exchange bought the European Carbon Exchange, too, by the way. Everybody's in on it. Al Gore, John Kerry, Warren Buffett, Maurice Strong, Bill Gates, they're all in on this. It's a moneymaker. You have to, if you're a polluter, you have to buy carbon credits from, say, farmers who are not polluters. And, of course, the exchange is going to keep a little piece for themselves. The whole thing is a scam. The planet is not warming. The planet actually has been in a cooling period for 11 years. Now, they say, okay, we need to capture CO2. You all know that CO2 is plant food, right?
Right.
And if you do an experiment and you add more CO2 to a plant and less CO2 to a different plant and you compare them, the one with less CO2 is going to be smaller. And if it's a vegetable plant, it's not going to produce vegetables.
Well, not to mention that the plants take in CO2 and put off oxygen, as we humans do the opposite. So it would be less oxygen.
Right, there would be less oxygen in the air. So the way to cure all of that is plant some vegetables, plant some trees.
I did my part.
All right, so now the Veterans Administration is under fire for failing to take care of our military veterans, failing to even put them in to see a doctor. They go on this permanent hold waiting list they never get off of. Some people die on that list, never even knowing they're on it. Today, our VA, Veterans Administration, the Veterans Affairs verified account, tweeted out, "Our ocean is under threat. Join people all over the world and make a difference." And they use the hashtag #OurOcean. First of all, do they know how many oceans there are? They put it in
Probably
the singular.
not. Mm-hmm.
Well, Twitchy picked it up, but over at the Veterans Affairs verified account, I picked up a couple of comments in response to them tweeting about climate change. There's nothing more that the Veterans Administration could be working on than climate change. What the hell do they have to do with climate, period? Their one and only job that they can't pull off is to care for veterans. And they haven't been able to do that. What are they worried about the ocean for? And there's many oceans, in case they don't know that. Well, there's some people responded to them. It says, despicable when they're literally murdering vets. Another one, Tyler Hunter, said, over here, he said, you can't get your together, but global warming, how about take care of our vets before the sky is falling there, Chicken Little? Another one says, I just had to keep this screenshot before it's deleted, and sent it out to all their friends. Derek Hunter says, they get care from the VA? Our ocean is under threat? Another one says, you're shitting me, right? You're killing people, hiding it, and punishing whistleblowers, and you tweet this nonsense? Why don't you work on not killing vets first? How's that? Another one says, PR chief, see if he or she got a performance bonus for this garbage. Try doing your job, scumbags. What does that have to do with your incompetence regarding treatment of our veterans? The oceans? Come on. Go ahead, Jojo.
Speaking of, while we're still talking about John Kerry, another article came out from the Canada Free Press. It says that the Israelis are ready to go to war, even if the United States is not. The news out of the Middle East reflects how President, and I'm putting this in the John Kerry category because of all his BS. But anyway, the news out of the Middle East reflects how President Obama's policies have led to an Islamic terrorist takeover of huge swaths of Syria and Iraq. No nation watches these events more closely than Israel. On June 6th, the chief of the IDF, Lieutenant General Benny Gantz, cryptically remarked that the IDF is gearing up to address the growing numbers of terrorist forces on its border with Syria. He noted Iraq as well, for good measure. When Israel is in the news, it's usually because it's under attack or responding to one. The only other times have been news of peace talks between it and the PA. But none of those talks over decades has ever achieved peace because, as the diplomatic community knows, the Palestinians do not want it. Most recently, the PA announced unity with Hamas, a Palestinian organization that all nations identify as terrorists. As Ephraim Inbar, the director of the Begin Sadat Center for Strategic Studies and a fellow of the Middle East Forum, recently noted, as long as the military branch of Hamas remains independent, there is no Palestinian unity. Why the PA would engage in this charade is known only to them. There are no advantages in it because they do not gain any presence in the Gaza Strip, the home to Hamas. Basically, it's kind of what we were talking about before. Israel is surrounded, and they're not going to sit there and wait for our foreign policy to get them killed.
Well, I tell you, if they get attacked, then, they may go down, but they're going down in a blaze of glory. They're just going to open up. It's going to be a hole where the Middle East used to be.
Yeah.
That wouldn't break my heart, by the way. The VA went after whistleblowers even before this all hit the news, by the way.
By the way, one of the whistleblowers out of the VA in Shreveport, Overton Brooks, is a guy I used to work with. He is he's a social worker, counselor. And he was on the news and in the news, and he's putting it all out there. Just poof. I'm really proud of him. His name's Shay. I'm proud that he had the guts to do it.
I'm proud of him, too. Well, Hadia put out an article in the New York Times. Actually, they picked some pieces out of the New York Times. It says, staff members at dozens of departments of Veterans Administration hospitals across the country have objected for years to falsified patient appointment schedules and other improper practices only to be rebuffed, disciplined, or even fired after speaking up, according to interviews with current and former staff members and internal documents. In an interview with the New York Times, a half-dozen current and former staff members, 4 doctors, a nurse, and an office manager in Delaware, Pennsylvania, and Alaska, said they faced retaliation for reporting systemic problems. Their accounts, some corroborated by internal documents, portray a culture of silence and intimidation within the department and echo experiences detailed by other VA personnel in court filings. Government investigators and congressional testimony, much of it is largely unnoticed until now. So they were doing it before and they've been doing it since. Now, I saw an article saying that a bunch of people had been doing investigations, and this goes back to the Bush years. And actually, they had started to really come to light in 2006, and then 2007, 2008. In 2007 and 2008, Obama campaigned on all the problems at the VA. But you know where he was in 2006? He was a senator. And he sat on the Veterans Affairs Commission. So he knew about it before he even ran for office. What did he do about it?
Maybe not. But maybe not, because he was a no-show for work most of the time. He probably was on the committee, but that doesn't mean he ever showed up, because he is lazy and didn't want to work even as a senator. He doesn't believe in work ethics. So who knows if he showed up?
Yeah, really. And if he got briefings, who knows if he read them?
Yeah.
You know, he's always gone for a free ride. Got into a conversation about that. You know, somebody said, well, if he was white, he would have been impeached. You know, he probably would have. Nixon had to step down. Even Bill Clinton got impeached, and they loved him, and it was Democrat there, too, that voted to impeach him. But, you know, I see all these people racing to Obama's aid. No matter what he does, you cannot blame him for anything when it comes to the left. I decided, you know what? They're the real racists. They're the ones that always say, well, Bush did it, and what about Bush? Bush did this and Bush did that. They can't even bring themselves to accept that not only is Obama the current president, but he's been the president for 6 years. So when he does something that we all think is bad, they come rushing to his aid because they think that he's inferior to them. He couldn't possibly be held responsible for anything he does if he's inferior and he can't comprehend exactly what his actions are doing. That's why he needs their lily white liberal buggers to come and race to him and shore him up. because they put so much time and effort into him, and they know he's inferior according to their own elitist opinion, so they have to shore him up to make themselves look good. They're the ones that are racist. See, I'm not racist. I think Obama knows exactly what he's doing. I think he's quite capable of understanding the consequence of his actions.
I think
so that's
he
what it
on,
is.
And he's on a short leash, and he is short-timing it, and that's why things are fixing to get real fast and furious, really quick. Just like the Doug Hackman article said.
Next time somebody calls you a racist, just tell them, honey, let go of the denial. It's okay. He's the president. He's been the president for 5 years. You don't have to shore him up. He's capable of understanding things, even though your elitist little snobby self doesn't believe it. That's the way to handle it, Jojo. I'm done playing games with these people.
I want to just put this out there. Just remember, if we're in the middle of World War III, he can still remain in the presidency.
Yeah, well, we're going to have to grow a set ourselves and start. We always go after the Republicans. How does a country who hires, at first a supermajority too, hired a Democrat-controlled Congress, Democrat-controlled Senate, and then hired a Democrat-controlled president, and yell at the Republicans to stop them?
Yeah.
And then they did take over Congress, but it's still a Democrat-controlled Senate and a Democrat-controlled presidency. So what is it exactly they're yelling at the Republicans about when it wasn't the Republicans who voted in the Democrats that are pulling this crap? It's our fault, guys. I don't think voting for Democrats is a good strategy if you want the Republicans to stop them when you can stop them yourself at the poll. I think we got to pull together and at least try a strategy. But it's time to go after the Democrats. You don't have to automatically assume that you deserve it because it's coming from a Democrat. I would expect the Democrats to be equally as patriotic as anybody else. You don't expect them to be communists. We're not in a communist country. We're in a representative republic. So there are employees. Since when do employees snub you and withhold information from you and hand your country, your Constitution over to a dictator and stand up and applaud him when he does it? You don't have to take that from Democrats. It's time to go hard after the Democrats. Maybe because we keep going after the Republicans, the Democrats think it's okay.
Well, their strategy is working. They're two-stepping. They're beating the Republicans over the head with everything they throw at them. The Republicans don't even know how to play their game right, and the Dems are winning with all the little games going on right now.
Yep. I got one Obamacare article, and then we're going to go into the illegals because that's important going on too. All right, this article is from the New York Times. It says that thousands of people are going to be questioned on their eligibility for Obamacare subsidies. If you got a subsidy, you may not be entitled to it, and you may have to pay it back, and your medical insurance prices are going to go up even more. This is, like I said, from the New York Times. The Obama administration is contacting hundreds of thousands of people with subsidized health insurance to resolve questions about their eligibility, as consumer advocates express concern that many will be required to repay some or all of the subsidy. So now all these community organizers are getting mad because these people might have to pay it back, too. Of the 8 million people who signed up for private health plans through insurance exchanges under the new health care law, 2 million reported personal information that differed from data in government records, according to federal officials and Serco, the company hired to resolve such inconsistencies. The government is asking consumers for additional documents to verify their income, citizenship, immigration status, and Social Security numbers, as well as any health coverage that they may have from employers. People who do not provide the information risk losing their subsidized coverage and may have to repay subsidies next April. So now they're going to go through and check eligibility. That's pretty bad, guys. This is really going to hit the fan. And that 8 million number is wrong, too. It's actually only around 4 million because half of them are doubles. Let's talk about these illegals.
Oops.
The other night, Jay Johnson, our DHS director, came out with a statement that there is going to be a flood of illegals coming into this country if the GOP does not pass immigration reform. Listen to that again. There's going to be a flood of illegals if the GOP doesn't surrender. Hello, he's not just threatening the GOP, he's threatening sedition, an invasion of foreigners. That is, I think it's illegal to threaten members of Congress, first of all, but they're going to frame it, well, the GOP didn't pass immigration reform, so it's their fault. No, honey, you're the DHS guy. You're the one that's supposed to be securing the border. It's not the GOP fault, and don't even go there. But listen to that threat, man. That was the DHS guy saying that he's going to allow an invasion of the United States. Let's do some numbers. They say that there's about 360 million people in the United States, right? They say that we probably have 30 million illegals. Okay. Now, on top of that 30 million that they say we have, they're telling you that there's 48,000 unaccompanied minors, so add that to the pile. Add the 36,000 inmates that Obama just released. And then, what do you think, these children came over without even one adult? How many adults are we not counting? All right, so we could be talking up to 40 million illegals in this country right now, right this minute. 40 million illegals. There's only 360 million people. So that's like 1 in 10 people in America right now are illegal. Those are big numbers. Those are real big numbers. Now, they also told us that these kids are coming from Guatemala, Honduras. What was the other place? Jojo? Guatemala, Honduras.
Guatemala.
Yeah, and Honduras, there was another one, too. Anyhow, in Guatemala, there are advertising going on, telling people, come to the United States, you're not going to get thrown out. They're going to give you papers, send the kids. You know who's paying for those ads? George Soros.
We are.
La Raza.
Oh.
Yep. The money that is supposed to be being used for border security, Holder has redirected it so that they can pay for lawyers, so that they can avoid deportation. Since when is border security money supposed to go to lawyer cronies for illegals who are not entitled to lawyers?
Well, then all those guys make more money. God knows how many lawyers we have on the payroll. You know, Eric Holder probably hired a cajillion of them.
Oh, yeah, all his cronies in Covington and Burling and Forrester and all of those places. Well, the Guatemalan ambassador said, you know, now these kids are being coached. You ask these kids why they left their home country, they're going to say they were afraid of the violence, the gangs, government strife, whatever. These kids are being coached. The Guatemalan ambassador said that violence is not the reason for the influx because there hasn't been a change in the gang status, murder rate, or any of that in Guatemala. So that's a lie. Now, there was a story about this summer camp that a church runs, and it's only open a couple of weeks during the summer for the campus, of course. Well, they've been trucking, people in like armored and personnel carriers, children in and out of there. There were two groups of them. The first group was the older kids. The second group was the younger kids. They recently moved them out of this place. And they had all night, they had cops and trucks and stuff going in and out of there and buses taking those kids out of there. So it stands to reason, first of all, you would notice those children coming across the border. You also know that little 2- and 3-year-olds did not walk 1,800 miles from Guatemala or Honduras to the United States. So it stands to reason they're being flown in. And then Michelle Malkin put out an article that 2 plane loads of illegals landed at Hanscom Air Force Base in Massachusetts recently. And then you see them at Langley. As a matter of fact, a bunch of people have been down to Langley. They won't let them in. They won't let them photograph them, won't let them talk to them. The only one they let in was Al Sharpton. And, of course, that's for propaganda reasons. And the little kids were all wearing their Obama 2008 T-shirts and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, that's just hand-me-downs from the Red Cross, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, it could be.
I don't know.
It could be. But still.
It could be, but...
All right,
yeah.
now, when you have a child come into your country and you take possession of that child, if you take that kid from the border and you move it 1.5 feet from the border, you better have care and custody of that kid or you're kidnapping. I'm thinking that they're kidnapping these children by fraud and deceit, which is a felony, by the way, international human smuggling, international child smuggling, child trafficking, felony kidnap, felony child endangerment. They're taking these children and dumping them at bus stations. If you have care and custody of a child, you are responsible for the welfare of that child. You cannot just dump it at a bus station. I don't care if you're the federal government or you aren't. So now our federal government is abusing children.
Do you know about the Council of Governors? I thought it was formed in 2004, but something I read today said 2008. But I still think there was one formed in 2004. Jan Brewer there's I think 10 of them, and she's like one of the top dogs on the Council of Governors. If she is in that committee, she should have a little stroke. Why in the heck hasn't she gone to the Council of Governors and deployed the National Guard? See, this just doesn't make sense to me. But because I guess then it'd be an act of war or something. I don't know. But, one of the biggest things the federal government is supposed to do, besides all the other crap they do they're not supposed to do, is to protect our borders. The one job they have that they are supposed to do, they ain't even trying. They're just worried about the EPA and the DA, all this other mess. All the alphabets crap.
Yeah. I think Texas is in a better position. Texas is a sovereign state, and they have a contract with the United States of America, the Union. And they can even secede if they want to. I think if Texas wants to put Texas Rangers on the border, they can. And if Texas wants to deputize civilians and put them on the border, they can. I'm not so sure in Arizona, but I know Texas can.
But Jan Brewer, sometime in the last year, formed a separate Arizona militia. It's formed by the state government. Why hasn't she called him up? And
I don't know. I think
Rick Perry's also sitting on his hands. The people in Texas are calling for a special session, a special meeting, a special whatever to get Rick Perry off his butt and do something.
Yeah, well, writing letters to Jay Johnson isn't going to help them. I saw the letter that Dewhurst and Jan Brewer both wrote to Jay Johnson. Jay Johnson's the one that just threatened you with the invasion of foreign nationals. Another thing, America, if you don't know about it, Eric Holder is recruiting some of the older kids into AmeriCorps.
Obama's Army.
Yep, Obama's Army. And they're not loyal to the country, and they don't have any parents. So who do you think they're going to be loyal to? Obama. Okay, so now he's got a little private army of foreign nationals who are indebted to him. Sounds like slavery or indentured servitude to me, but might want to keep an eye on that too. Check out what's going on with AmeriCorps. He's recruiting the older kids, the 16 and up crew, into AmeriCorps for national service. You did see them training and stuff, the AmeriCorps, right, with the Obama salutes and the hand signals, like the Hitler salute there, the Heil Obama.
Yeah, and which one of our previous generals is in charge of that?
McChrystal?
Yeah. He's in charge of the,
well,
whatever.
If you want another in-your-face slap a move, tomorrow, Obama is going to he's going to honor illegals at a ceremony. This is from the Daily Caller. 2 activists with the group Mi Familia Voter Education Funds will be honored as champions of change at a special White House ceremony. Fernanda Zaragoza Gomez, 19, a Colorado Mi Familia voter canvasser, and Stephen Ortega Rodriguez, a Texas activist with the group, are both dreamers who began their activism careers after applying for and gaining Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, a program established by Obama to provide living and working status for undocumented young immigrants. The activist group, which has offices in 6 states, works for the goal of expanding the electorate through direct, sustainable citizenship, voter registration, census, education. Mi Familia Voter Board of Directors includes labor leader Eliseo Medina, who said in 2010 speech that immigration reform will create a long-term progressive governing coalition. So he wants them all to be proggies. Now, this kid here, 19 years old, and Stephen Ortega Rodriguez, a Texas activist, they can find D.C., they can find Obama, they can vote canvasser, they can apply for deferred action and childhood arrivals. They can find everything except an immigration office. How long have they been here? If you've been here that long and you can't find your way to an immigration office, you can find our schools, you can find our churches, you can find every amenity except an immigration office, that tells me you do not want to become an American, because if you did, you would be going through the motions to become an American. You know, they tell us they've been here. I've been here 25 years, and you couldn't find an immigration office in 25 years? I'm sorry, I have no tears for these people.
Well, we know the answer to that. We've covered that 1,000 times. It's just not going to happen. And I don't know the answer. The answer is a bunch of 50-year-old women like us can't really do a whole lot about it.
Mark Krikorian over at the Center for Immigration Studies, he said he received the following email from a Texas state official who recently toured the border area where mass crossings are taking place, and this is an excerpt from his note. What we saw and heard was maddening, frightening, and pathetic. The pictures shown in the media of the conditions at the Border Patrol facilities is accurate. We saw several hundred youth crammed into holding cells with the spillover out in the loading dock area. While we did see some infants and small children, the vast majority were teenage males. Although the facility was terribly overcrowded, sanitation seemed adequate at the time, but Border Patrol officers were concerned about the spread of disease. Border Patrol officials and line officers were clearly demoralized by what's going on. Border Patrol folks were very candid in saying there was nothing they could do about the kids pouring across the border unless there was a change in policy in D.C. Border Patrol officials almost begged us being state officials and staff, to help get the policy changed. They readily admitted that none of these kids were ever going to be sent back and that our border is wide open for unaccompanied minors. Border Patrol also said that the drug cartels are certainly taking advantage of the situation. The Border Patrol personnel, including senior officials we talked to, were very demoralized. In contrast, the Texas Department of Public Safety is doing a great job of trying to pick up the slack. In fact, I was told by one Border Patrol official that if it wasn't for DPS, there wouldn't be any security on the Texas border at all. That's sad and pathetic.
Well, 6 months ago, Texas did send, within the last 6 months, Texas has sent the Texas Rangers and others down there to help out. But
do you know a third of the adults coming across that border, and about 15% of the children have scabies, JoJo?
Oh, not just scabies. They have tuberculosis, TB. And I also saw a picture of a kid looked like he had a red rash. I haven't seen measles. I've only seen it once or twice since I've been a nurse, but it really resembled measles to me.
Yeah, they say the
and
little
we
ones
got the
are showing up with measles.
Don't forget about the whooping cough dilemma too.
Yeah. Matter of fact, there's an outbreak of whooping cough on immigrants down here in Florida too. But measles and chicken pox.
Well, I mean, chicken pox. All kids are going to get that. But
yeah. Well,
I don't know.
I don't know what's going to happen with these illegals, but I am not very happy about having the whole country threatened by the Department of Homeland Security director, that he's purposely going to let an invasion of foreigners into this country. It's already a done deal. When we're talking 1 in 10 people, we are no longer a sovereign nation. We don't even have a border. How come Mexico secures their border unless there's something in it for Mexico? You know damn well those children, whether they were bused or walked, which I doubt, they had to have been allowed every inch of the way through Mexico. You just don't get through. You got a Marine who can't even turn around at a border crossing, make a U-turn.
Yeah.
But you got these people flooding over. You don't know who they are, what they're carrying. You don't know if they're jihadis. You don't know if they're ISIS. Heck, they might be the 5 Taliban who just got out of Gitmo. They might already been across the border. You don't know that. None of us do. Put it this way. We had 1,200 Border Patrol, and they even cut those back. But say we have 1,200. Now, that's got to cover 3 shifts, so that's 400 per shift. Now, you figure at least 200 of them are doing desk duty and babysitting these kids. So that leaves...
Well, wait, hold the fort. They put an all-call out to help. They're going to start hiring babysitters. Are we going to read the story? I don't... Well, I guess we're going to pull it out of that little hat.
Pull it out of our wazoo hat, because we're going to get it.
And speaking of taxes, if Lois Lerner lost her damn emails, I think I'm just going to... Why don't we all say, oh, you must have lost my tax return from last year. Or this coming up, you're going, what? You didn't get my email? You didn't get electronic filing? I filed it. What do you mean you don't have it?
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up, JoJo, because that's our next segment, the IRS. Today, Darrell Issa lost his mind. He actually lost his mind over the weekend. First of all, there's an old DOJ lawyer who said that the emails lost, that's laughable. He says, you obviously can't use my name or identifying information, but the idea that a hard drive crash somehow destroyed all Ms. Lerner's intra-government email correspondence during the period is laughable. Government email servers are backed up every night. So if she actually had a hard drive before her computer, it would be recoverable from the backup, and it would only cover that one day.
No, they're all archived. I mean, there's a law that they have to be archived. That's why, what's-her-face, I can't remember who, 2 or 3 years ago, had her dog's email to to move stuff around. Who was that? She had an email with her dog's name on it that she used instead of the archived official email. Yeah,
that was the EPA chief there.
Yeah.
What was her name?
I don't know. I can't remember.
Yeah, I know her name. Jesus. Can't think of it right now, but I know her name. But, back in when they were doing the hearing last March, the IRS commissioner said that Lois Lerner's emails were archived. That's all over the news today. When Chavez was asking about it, he said that all 90,000 of those emails were safe and stored and archived. Koskinen is his name. He said, do you believe it was duly issued by the House of Representatives? I'm assuming I have no independent basis for determining that. But he goes on and he says, the schedule, which I just have 8 items, all communications sent or received by Lois Lerner from January 1st to 2009 to August 2nd, 2013. Is there any ambiguity in your mind? Do you have any doubt as to what that means? So Koskin says, no, if you want to go through all 8, I have no doubt what any of it means. As I noted, some of them mean you're going to take months or years to get the information, and it's going to be voluminous. There's no doubt about it. So Chavez says to him, well, you have no doubt what it means. You believe it's a duly issued subpoena? And he said, there's physically no way anyone could have complied between February 14th and now. We never said we won't comply, he said. So Chaffetz asked him, so are you going to comply or not? He said, we're complying, and I'll tell you. But he goes on and he says that all 90,000 of the emails are secure, and they're in a box So a box is a storage and an archive at the National Archive. So they have these emails. And he testified under oath that they have them. So now, today, Darrell Issa issued a subpoena to that guy. Committee seeks Koskinen's answers on Federal Records Act violation of lost Lois Lerner emails. House Oversight and Government Reform Committee Chairman Darrell Issa today subpoenaed Internal Revenue Service IRS Commissioner John Koskiken to testify before the Oversight Committee on Monday, June 23rd at 7 p.m. The subpoena comes as a result of the agency's recent statement that the IRS lost an unknown number of emails pertaining to the activities of former IRS official Lois Lerner from January 2009 to April 2011. It also comes on the heels of the IRS's repeated empty promises of complying with oversight. So he did issue a subpoena for them. I don't know where it's going to go, JoJo. I really don't.
Sure, I do. Nowhere. Just like every other thing. Nowhere. Just whole hearings to whole hearing. It's like when you work for a corporate, you know, what do they say about supervisors? They just have meetings. They don't schedule another meeting. They're just meeting.
You're losing your signal.
Nothing's going to happen.
No, nothing's going to happen. You're breaking up, JoJo. I'm going to get you a better signal.
Well, I don't know that I can.
I can't understand you. It sounds like gabba. Anyhow, we got a lot of work we got to do here. Let's do a couple of other quick stories while she gets her other phone on, or she does a signal, because we're running out of time. This past quarter, the federal tax revenue is at a record high. You know that he raised taxes and all of that. Well, CNS News says federal tax revenues continue to run at record high pace in inflation-adjusted dollars. In fiscal 2014, as the federal government total receipts for the fiscal year closed May at an unprecedented $1,934,919,000,000, according to the monthly Treasury statement. Despite record revenue, the federal government still ran a deficit of $436.382 billion in the first 8 months of the fiscal year, which began on October 1st. So in the month of May alone, the federal government ran a deficit of $129 billion, bringing in $199.8 billion in revenue while spending $329. So they're still spending way more than they're bringing in. All right, gas prices. If you got to put gas in your car, I would suggest you do it today. Make sure you gas up all your cars and make sure you put a little back for storage. You're probably paying anywhere between $3.35 and $3.65 right now. But by this time next week, you're going to be paying maybe $4.65, depending on what happens in the Middle East. Right now, the Middle East is in an uproar. If we didn't close off our ability to drill and use our own oil, we wouldn't be in this situation. We could tell the Middle East to go take a flying hike. But seeing that we're in a position where we don't have any refining capability, we have very little refining capabilities, we are producing a lot of oil, but it's going into the open market and being governed by OPEC prices. And the people that are governing those prices hate us, as you may have noticed in the last recent news cycle. All these people, the ISIS and the Talibans and the Al-Qaedas and all of them, they all hate us, and they're all in control of all that Middle Eastern oil right now. You know, we would have been in control of it, but Obama blew that. We're the ones that, like when we took over Libya, we didn't take their oil. We buy it off them. And we went into Iraq. We didn't take their oil either. We buy that off them, too. Matter of fact, just as we were leaving Iraq, Iraq made some really sweet deals with China for that oil. So, you know, when you hear George Bush went in there to steal their oil, well, they still have their oil, so that's probably not the truth. Same with Libya. It wasn't for oil. otherwise would have that oil. We're the only ones that win war and give back the land and the assets and the amenities and everything. We give it all back to them. Everybody else, when they win wars, they take all the assets, they take the land, they take everything. Look, what you think ISIS is going to give Iraq back to the Iraqi people, or are they going to keep it? You think they're going to give that oil back to the Iraqi people, or are they going to keep it? There's your point. Obama says that spending on prisons is the reason that tuition has gone up in schools, in case you didn't know. I have no idea what he meant by that, because we don't have federal teachers. We have state and local education boards and teachers, but we don't have any federal teachers. So when he's talking about the 4 teachers, which one of them work for the federal government? The federal does subsidize public schools, but they don't hire the teachers. So we don't have any federal teachers. We don't have any federal police. Well, we do. We have the DHS and those. But when they say cops and fire department, those are also state and local, and those are all paid for by your property taxes. So you're being suckered there, too. Now, Wisconsin, on the other hand, they told Eric Holder to take a hike. Eric Holder is going after the state of Wisconsin, the private schools. Him and the State Department of Public Instruction regarding an ongoing investigation into Wisconsin school choice program. The lawmakers up in Wisconsin said, if Eric Holder wants to go fishing in Wisconsin, we have more than 15,000 lakes. We'll gladly find him a boat and a guide, said Senator Alberta Darling. He's a Republican from River Hills. And State Representative John Nygren. He's a Republican from Marionette. They wrote in a joint statement issued today. Darling and Yen are co-chairs of the legislature's powerful Joint Committee on Finance. We won't stand by and let the Obama administration kick poor kids out of their schools at the expense of Wisconsin taxpayers. I guess the state agency asked that the data be added to the annual online application system, and schools that participate in Wisconsin's school choice program under the OAS to enter student data and complete required reports. Data regarding students with disabilities has never been included in that database, but more than a year after the Justice Department told DPI it was investigating the state program on allegations there's a system-wide policy of discrimination against students with disabilities within the private choice schools, the information suddenly has become a need to know. They're using that as an excuse to get these private school records. But the most important thing that was said here in this whole argument, let me get to the back page here. I'm not going to read the whole thing. But it says here, here's the quote I wanted to read. And private schools are not public entities, a point upheld on a couple of occasions by the Wisconsin Supreme Court. The court has held that the use of vouchers at private schools does not transform them into public schools. So, in other words, Wisconsin told Holder to take a hike. He's not getting the data on their kids. All right. I got a couple more minutes. Over the weekend, there were 27 shootings in Chicago. Now, you know about all the gun grabbers, and they want your guns. And, these shootings were by illegal immigrant gangs and drug cartel gangs. 2 people were killed, 25 were shot. And it goes, on and on about where they were and who they were. But this doesn't fit the narrative. This is gangs, violent gangs, fighting each other. And it's minority on minority crime. And they're using handguns. So they're not even going to tell you about all these shootings in Chicago, which is a gun control city. They don't want any guns in their city. It's the most crime-infested city in the country. Well, they're using handguns. They're not using assault rifles, which are actually defense rifles. And they are not legal gun owners, so it doesn't fit the narrative, so I don't think you're going to hear about that. And then, to finish today off, I have this article. You all know that Thad Cochran is running a race for his life. And this guy, McDaniels, is running a course against him. McDaniels is a patriot, Tea Party person. Well, not really a Tea Party person because the Tea Party's not really supporting him, but patriots all over the country are supporting him. And Tad Cochran, he's been there forever. Well, Tad Cochran was giving a speech the other day, and he said one of the weirdest things I have ever heard in my life. I'm going to read you a little bit about it, and then I'm going to play the audio so you can hear for yourself what this crazy old man has to say. I think it's time for this guy to go because, I mean, you don't come up with a statement like this in public if you really want to keep your job. What he said was that when he was a kid, he used to do indecent things with animals, and the people laughed. He said it like they should know what he was talking about. I'm going to tell you a little bit of story. First, I'm trying to get to the time on the audio so that you don't have to wait for it. Oh, I went too far on this, but I'll tell you a little story while we're doing it. No, this isn't working for me here. All right, I'll start here. It says, Tad Cochran, I don't remember ever saying I did indecent things with animals as a child. Now, Matthew Boyle over at Breitbart wrote this. He says, when asked by local television reporter to respond to his bizarre comments about unsavory acts that he said he committed with animals as a child, Cochran said he doesn't remember. I think maybe I was misunderstood, Cochran said. I don't remember ever saying that. What Cochran said, and according to the video that I'm going to play for you, says was as a child, he did all kinds of indecent things with animals. His campaign spokesman, Jordan Russell, at first tried to play it off to the Daily Caller as if it was a joke, but has not responded to follow-up inquiries about what Cochran meant by indecent. Now listen to what he says here.
With the next, but all at the same time trying to get back as often as we could because it was fun. It was an adventure to be out there in the country and to see what goes on, picking up pecans from that to all kinds of indecent things with animals. So I know some of you know what that is.
Do you hear what he said? He said he was visiting his grandmother and his aunts, and they were going down the path and picking up pecans and all kinds of indecent things with animals. So think before you vote for Tad Cochran. All right, guys, that's all the time we have, and we hope you enjoyed our show. To everybody who's listening, all of the people who called in, you didn't raise your hand, but I see you there. All the cool people in the chat rooms, thank you so much. Anna, Lynn, AstroTurf, great job, ladies. And as always, thank you to my great co-host, JoJo Norton. Stay tuned to PRN.